The fourth annual Human Rights Summit would like to take a moment to welcome the members of the San Francisco Pride Board of Directors. If you're on the SF Pride Board, please start making your way down to the stage and join us up here. These wonderful human beings, on a pro bono, year-round basis, pour their hearts into making this summit a reality. Please join me in acknowledging, both in physical space as well as afar, Ronnie Jones. He's joining us from afar. Vice President Maceo Person. Board member, the iconic Michelle Meow. From afar, board treasurer Jupiter Peraza. Right here next to us, Dejan Jackson. We also have board member Sam Flores, as well as board member Shane Zaldivar. From afar, we have board president Joshua Smith, board secretary Jack Beck, right? And last and certainly not least, from a distance, board member Orion Lamb.
Yay.
Thank you so very much. Now, I am pleased to welcome to the stage, you saw her earlier in a very deep, very profound and meaningful conversation with a very high-powered coffee executive. Please welcome back to the stage the iconic and first openly trans executive director of San Francisco Pride, Madame Suzanne Ford. As well as the producer of not just the fourth annual Human Rights Summit, but every single Human Rights Summit we've ever had at SF Pride, Michelle Meow. These extraordinary human beings will now provide some opening plenary remarks and a heartfelt thank you to the team, volunteers, and sponsors who made today possible. Friends, take it away.
Happy Pride. Yeah, my name is Suzanne Ford. I'm so happy to be here. I am the executive director at San Francisco Pride. I'm looking out here. I see all the executive directors out here. It fills my heart that you all are here with us. Everybody, Michelle Meow has done such a fantastic job over these last 4 years. We were inspired, you know, there's a Human Rights Summit at World Pride every time it's held. And we wanted to do something in San Francisco to stand up to what we face in this country and in fact the world. And we wanted to support Black and brown people and trans people. And Michelle has done this. The programming of this event has gotten better and better and better every year. So give Michelle a big round of applause. I just want to share with you that this morning my heart is so full. It is Pride Week. I have not stopped running for the last week, and I've got about 4 more days to go. But you can look around this room, you can just feel it. You can feel it everywhere I go in the city. Hey, Suzanne, it is Pride Week in San Francisco, and I think I'm so grateful that I live in this city, that I have my group of friends, that I have my queer community, and I get to be Suzanne. And that story could only happen in San Francisco. Thank you all for coming. I think every year, Michelle and I are like, is anybody going to show up? And look at this room. Look at this room. So thank you all for being here. Michelle.
Thank you. I'm going to make it really quick. I mean, to be honest with you, the more important stuff is all of you here, all of you doing the work, and the exchange that you will make as you leave this building in taking care of one another. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do some housekeeping things so that we can get the party started here and everywhere else. Just to remind you, 1:30 on the third floor conference room is Nia Clark from the Human Rights Campaign, who's going to do a workshop on telling your story. And downstairs in Rembe is Raquel Willis, who's actually this year's Celebrity Grand Marshal. She's an author, she's an activist. She'll talk about her book, The Risk It Takes to Bloom. We all know what that means, and she'll be in conversation with fellow activist and fellow author Michelle Mi-jung Kim. So if you're interested in that conversation, you head downstairs to Rembe at 1:30, but hold if you're here for our amazing Grand Marshals who are going to do their speeches. We know why Pride exists. Every year we recognize the work that you do, and so we have a cohort of some of the best who are in our community doing it every day. I'm going to turn it back over to Huynh. Let's do this.
This is an exciting segment for all of you. We get to honor our 2026 SF Pride Grand Marshals. This year's Grand Marshals are individuals and organizations who have demonstrated extraordinary commitment to LGBTQ+ liberation and human rights. They are our champions, our trailblazers, and our North Stars. And they are honored with the highest level of recognition that our organization is able to provide every single year. First, recognized for their vital work in transgender health and community support, please welcome our organizational Grand Marshal, Trans Thrive.
Hi, everyone. Happy Pride. My name's Sage Hapke. I'm one of the Associate Directors of Complex Care with Trans Thrive. I'm so honored to be here today. Thank you all so much for your attendance. A little bit of a backstory about what Trans Thrive for folks in the audience, folks around the world listening. Trans Thrive started as a community network in the early 2000s. Fast forward 2007, SF Community Health Center, which was formerly the API Wellness Center, got appointed Trans Thrive. I started with the agency back in 2023. I was a program specialist at the time, and we would run across the street every single day to City Hope, where we would make hot meals for about 20, 30 trans folks in the Tenderloin. Today, we have our very own space at 1460 Pine Street. We see 50 to 70 folks every single day. We feed their bellies. We get them some coffee, hot water, drinks, snacks, desserts. We have support groups every single day. We have a trans-led clinic on site now. We have trans-led behavioral health providers on site. And we have a Pride party immediately after this that I'll be running to. If you have any trans folks that you are close to, that you love, that you share space with, and they're looking for a home, Trans Thrive is the place to be. Just a little plug, we're open Monday through Friday, 2 to 4:30 p.m. Anyone is welcome. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for having us as your Community Grand Marshal this year.
Keep it going for this year's organizational Grand Marshal, Trans Thrive. Next up, we have one of our individual Grand Marshals. Please welcome to the stage, John Weber.
I did some prepared remarks, if it's okay. And it's coming from my heart. If you have the world stage, you might as well make it profound and meaningful. So I want to share this, my thoughts with you. I want to say thank you for being here today. When I think about standing in spaces like this, I know that I didn't get here by myself. I stand here on the shoulders of ancestors, activists, storytellers, disruptors, dreamers, and ordinary people who chose courage when courage came at a cost. As a Black gay man, and my life has been shaped by gems, people like Alex Baldwin, who taught us that not everything that you face can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Bayard Rustin, one of the greatest architects yet overlooked in modern civil rights movement, a profound Black gay man who was the chief architect of the 1963 March on Washington, where Martin Luther King, well, you know, delivered his famous and iconic I Have a Dream speech. What about Langston Hughes, who reminded us to hold dignity to dreams, or Elin Harris, who gave many Black men the permission to fully be ourselves in literature, or Wanda Sykes, who taught us that truth and humor can coexist. And what about Angela Davis, who happened to be one of my instructors at San Francisco State, who showed us that justice requires persistence. Marsha P. Johnson, who showed us what radical love and courage looks like. And we have Bay Area icons and footprints who had an indelible impression on me, like Harvey Milk, Cleve Jones, Jose Siria, the founder of the Imperial Court organization, in which I became the first Black African emperor. Adele Martin, Phyllis Lyons, Cecilia Chung, Margot Hall, Paul Henderson. These are people shaped by understanding and identifying that not everything is up for that we survive. It's something to honor. And that brings me to something very, very important. What's important? I'm gonna put my glasses on, that's the important part. And thank you for bearing with me. There is a difference between being tolerated and being appreciated. Tolerance says, I guess you can stay. Appreciation says, your presence makes us better. There is also a difference between being tolerated and being celebrated. Because celebration says you belong here fully. And because none of us wake up in the morning thinking, you know, what I'm going to do today, I think I just want to be average and be accepted at a bare minimum. No one puts that on their vision board. We all want something deeper, right? We want something deeper. We want dignity. We want belonging. We want humanity. And one thing I've learned in this LGBT plus Q center, and in our culture, we're everywhere. We're in income brackets, every neighborhood, every faith tradition, every profession, every family. We're in boardrooms and classrooms, church pews, and break rooms. We're in community center, government offices, and some of us are raising children. And some of us are caring for aging parents. Some of us are still figuring out ourselves. Our existence cuts across every line society tries to draw. And because of that, do not allow other people to define you or put boundaries on your life. Do not let someone else decide the size of your dreams. Do not let anyone tell you, you belong here. Stay in your lane. You heard that before, right? Because limitations is often the oldest form of control. Sometimes society builds cages, and sometimes society teaches us to build cages for ourselves. Do not decorate your cage. Leave it. Currently, these extreme groups are attempting to cause distraction while dismantling fundamental fabrics of humanity and society. They deny Black Americans the right to vote, stripping voting rights away in the South, targeting immigrants by identifying them while they reside here, rounding them up and confining them to detention centers, remnants of the internment camps, just as they did with the Japanese families here on American soil. They also unjustly tell transgender individuals, my brothers and sisters, and gender nonconforming and non-binary individuals, that they cannot use certain restrooms, or claiming that that it harms children, and asserts that drag brunches and story times at library pose a threat. But the stark reality is that a child is far safer attending a drag story hour than being in many churches or schools. As some of us living in an intersection between black and gay, I understand that it feels like to move through multiple worlds at once, sometimes carrying pride, sometimes carrying exhaustion, sometimes carrying questions, but the intersection is not a burden. This is evident that human beings are beautifully complex, and some want to ask you something. If your life was a book, what would the title be? And what would chapter 1 say? I ask you this question. Would it begin with struggle? Would it begin with joy, loss, discovery, survival? Because every one of us are writing our own story every single day. And our stories matter. It matters for our gay colleagues. It matters for our transgender colleagues. It matters for our non-binary colleagues. It matters for people who are questioning, for people who have never felt safe enough to say their stories in truth out loud. Our story matters because someone else still will be searching for theirs. And today, people are asking, how do we respond to parts of society who try to erase us and the LGBTQ lives in our experiences? I'll tell you how we respond. We respond by existing fully. We respond by telling our stories. We respond by refusing invisibility. We respond by building community like this one right here, right now. We respond by protecting each other because history teaches us something important. Attempts to erase people rarely begins with disappearance. They begin with silence. They begin with silence. They begin with exclusion. They begin with humanity becoming something that people want to debate instead of protect. And let me say this clearly because I feel I need to say this. I am tired of people intellectualizing inhumanity. Inhumanity, dignity is not an academic exercise. People's existence is not a thought for experiment. Cruelty does not become acceptable because it's wrapped up in policy or language or talking points or a polished presentation. When people target you or individuals or communities because of race, gender, identity, sexual orientation, immigration status, and simply because they exist differently, that deserves our attention and our courage, not later, now. And before I close, I want to say this. I want to leave you with this. Think about the people. Think about the people who influenced you, who helped you, who helped shape your life, who opened a door, who made you feel seen, who made space for you when there wasn't room at the table. Carry them with you. Then become that person for someone else. Because legacy is not only what we inherit, legacy is what we leave behind. I want to thank you deeply for listening. I want to showing up and to say thank you for creating this space where people can move from tolerance to belonging. And thank you very much for helping write the future for our people, for the LGBT community, and more importantly, to get life and to not live smaller, but to live fuller lives. Thank you. And from the bottom of my heart, happy Pride.
Yes. Grand Marshal John Weber, everybody. Amazing. Mwah. Emperor. Ooh. Anybody else have a flooded basement after that? My goodness. If you know what I'm saying. Ladies and gentlethems, and everyone beyond the binary, please welcome our next Grand Marshal, Ms. Bob Davis.
I was sitting there listening to John's wonderful speech and hoping I wouldn't have to follow him. And yet here I am. This has been an amazing experience for me. What a month. The recognition I've received is truly touching and leaves me feeling a bit speechless. Though this is the wrong time to feel speechless, when I have such a wonderful podium to speak from. I'm the founder of the Louise Lawrence Transgender Archive. Presently, we are the only independent transgender archive in the country. There's another one forming in New York, but they don't have a space yet. We have a space. We're in Vallejo, California. Why Vallejo? We could afford it. Welcome to the Bay Area. The archive is the result of me being a compulsive collector. I've been collecting things from my community for over 50 years now, well, almost 50 years. And I did that starting 50 years ago. The first time I had an apartment of my own, I actually went to a pornography store, which I'd been going to for many years, looking at things, but never willing to take them home. And finally I did. And more, and more, and more. I feel that my community, our community, has a history that is too precious to be trusted to anyone else. Yes, the universities have the larger archives, but there can be changes where they would say that they don't want them anymore. Our history is best preserved by the community itself, by the GLBT Historical Society, the fiscal sponsor of my archive, which I call Louise, because Louise Lawrence was a trans woman who transitioned in 1942 when her marriage broke up because of her cross-dressing. And she remained, she's a woman for the rest of her life, without surgery, without medical intervention as far as we know. She worked as a waitress during World War II in a bar in North Beach. And there she said she learned how to deal with men in general and drunks in particular. Fortunately, we don't have drunks at the archive, at least not yet. Hasn't happened yet. But I invite you to visit your own history. Transgender, LGBT, leather, they are all archives that will welcome you, will give you a sense of who you are and where you've come from. Don't forget that. It's too important to know that, yes, you may have one time been the only one you know, but you're not the only one there is. It's in that connection that we thrive, that we gain our strength, that we can oppose this administration or any other. We will become, from knowing each other, too strong for them to ignore, too strong for them to attack, and too strong to do anything else but help our brothers and sisters. Thank you.
help you down. Yes. Ms. Bob Davis, everybody, your 2026 Grand Marshal. Oh. Ooh. I'm very pleased to introduce our next Grand Marshal, the iconic, the incomparable, the inimitable president of the world's first LGBTQ community foundation, Horizons Foundation. Please welcome your 2026 Grand Marshal, Mr. Roger Dottie.
So very unlike John, I have no prepared remarks. I didn't actually quite understand that I was to speak for a couple of minutes, so I will do my very best. But thank you all for being here, and thank you for the opportunity to talk. You know, it's 40 years almost to the day that I really became, as I termed it then, a gay activist, a queer activist. And the reason for that was that I was living in St. Louis, Missouri, and I remember I was driving this ancient car that I had because I had no money, so all I could afford was some beater. And I was going down the highway, Highway 40, in St. Louis, Missouri, and over the radio, there came the announcement that the Supreme Court had decided the infamous Bowers v. Hardwick decision, which upheld anti-sodomy laws across the country. And I was so outraged. I was so enraged. I remember pounding the ceiling of the car as I was going and just saying to myself, okay, I have to be part of changing this. And that's really the date from which I became a gay activist, and that's 40 years ago as of June 30th, which is next week. And as I said, I lived in St. Louis, and that was also where I went to my first Pride Parade. And that Pride Parade, again, we're back at about 1986 here. That Pride Parade, there were maybe 200 of us, I would say, in a relatively safe part of St. Louis, there being no really safe part of St. Louis at that time for queer people. And there were a number of people in the march who had bags over their heads. You know, they had just, a paper bag or something like that. And I remember being deeply, deeply moved by that, not only because it so obviously indicated the kind of oppression that people felt and the fear they felt from being exposed, but it also, to me, even though it might look like an example of cowardice, not being willing to show your face, it was an example of courage. Because those people were doing everything they could, that they could in that time with their circumstances, and they were out in the street. And I remember finding that deeply, deeply inspiring. But there were only about 200 of us, so a year later, when my boyfriend at the time and I went up to Chicago to go to a gay pride the next year, and there were just acres of queer people around, and lots of men without all that many clothes on, which was also delightful. And it was this revelation. It was this amazing experience, and that was because of Pride. And then, of course, having been now a veteran of San Francisco Pride, I've seen it at its greatest scale many times, from both in the parade and watching and cheering alongside everybody else. And what I think about for this Sunday is the people who were like me back then, or probably these days, even younger. And they're going to go to Pride, and they're going to have an experience that's going to blow their minds. And it is going to be an opportunity for them to paraphrase what you just said, Ms. Bob, about, you are not the only one. No, you are not the only one. And they will have this powerful experience. And again, only Pride really makes that happen. Just a couple of other thoughts. John did a wonderful job of many things, but one of them was to paint a little picture of the times that we are in right now. And I won't belabor that point because we all know what those times are like. But what I will say is that lies and hatred will never be stronger than truth and love. And pride is our truth. And it's about love from beginning to end. This is a great honor for me. It's for lifetime achievement, which makes me feel really old. But I have the gray hair to prove it. And I will be stepping down after 40 years of activism. I'm stepping down from Horizons after a long stint there. It's been a great honor to be part of Horizons Foundation, the LGBTQ Community Foundation for the Bay Area. And it's a great honor for this award. So I thank Pride and I thank all of you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Roger. I love you. Congratulations. Thank you, thank you. Our lifetime achievement, Grand Marshal, everybody, Mr. Roger Dowdy. So as we proceed into our final Grand Marshal speaker of the day, I do want to have a friendly reminder that what Roger just said this Sunday will be quite an impactful moment. Each of our Grand Marshals being honored this year does have their own space and their own float in the iconic SF Pride Parade. So step off is at 10:30 a.m. We'll see you all there. Finally, someone who will also be joining us as our moderator in just a few minutes. Before I welcome her to the stage, we will jump right into the first afternoon session right here in this room, downstairs in Rembe. Just a reminder that Raquel Willis and Michelle Mi-jung Kim will speak about the risks that it takes to bloom. And on the third floor conference room is Nia Clark from HRC with a workshop on telling your story. And now, my beautiful and brilliant friend, who also happens to be the president of the National Center for LGBTQ Rights, also known as NCLR. Please welcome the stunning and the bold, the audacious, and the perfectly imperfect Imani Rupert Gordon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Pride. My name is Imani Rupert Gordon, and I am so proud to be one of the 2026 San Francisco Pride Grand Marshals. In just a moment, I'm going to kick us off with our first plenary discussion, but before I do, I want to share a bit about what it means to me to be a Grand Marshal. When I'm in spaces like this, I'm usually talking about my work, but this is deeply personal to me, and so I want to thank you for sharing this moment. I remember when I was thinking about what it would look like for me to live openly as a queer person. There was an elder I knew, and she encouraged me to live my life openly, and one of the reasons she said was that it would mean a lot for Black girls and young Black women to see themselves represented in someone like you. For many young girls, the only queer people they ever see are white. And that stood out to me because while I don't think that anyone has to do anything for representation, when I thought about it, I realized that I didn't know any Black queer women either. And maybe that had something to do with the loneliness that I felt at that time. I didn't decide to come out that day or invite people in, as one of my friends says it, but that did start something for me. I remember looking at people around me that were out and proud and living their lives. The Grand Marshals that were at the front of the parade or speaking on Pride stages, much like I'm doing now. I saw them living their lives fully as their full selves, and they seemed to have so much strength and so much confidence in who they were, and it just radiated from them. Even when the world was against them, there was this strength that I saw in them, that I felt in them. And I didn't know how I would go from feeling the way that I did to feeling the way that I imagined that they felt. But I wanted that feeling very, very deeply. I remember the meaningful moments when someone saw who I was and didn't challenge me, but encouraged me to show up and be all that I am. I remember that because it was moments like those that made moments like today possible for me. I live a life that I love. I share it with my beautiful wife. I am immensely fulfilled by my career. And this only would have happened, this only could have happened if I embraced all of myself. And so I'm looking forward to the parade on Sunday because I'm excited to see faces of people that are coming together to live their lives out loud and doing it during a time when our so-called leaders are trying to make the world even more dangerous for people like us. But also, I'm hoping that I'll get a moment when I'll see someone in the crowd who's deciding if it's possible for them to live their lives fully and exactly who they are. And I hope that my strength and my confidence, the one that I have now that I didn't always have, I hope that that might help them be who they are. I hope to be the smile for someone that smiled for me when I needed it. And lastly, thank you. And lastly, because it's worth a reminder that Pride is a time for celebration, but it is also a time for action. Pride isn't the anniversary of the festivity. It's the anniversary of when we fought back. And I'm sure I speak for the cohort of Grand Marshals when I say that although we shouldn't have to fight for our existence, we remember that some of us have never had rights that we haven't had to fight for. And so during a time when courage is in dangerously short supply, I want everyone to know how proud I am and what an honor it is to fight for our community. I want to express my pride to work in a movement with such creative, thoughtful, and brave leaders. Leaders that do the right thing even when it's the hard thing. I am so honored to be one of your Grand Marshals. And with that, I want to welcome you to the open plenary.